This is an exciting time in Scotland's story, and understanding our past will help us determine our future. And when Scotland's voice is heard, it charts the way forward. This is Scotland Speaks with Alex Salmond.
Welcome to Scotland Speaks with Alex Salmond for a very special edition outside the AEK Stadium here in Larnaca. As you can see, I'm surrounded by Scotland football fans who are just about to enter the stadium. To watch the game, and we're hoping for a good result. Now, this show is dedicated to one of Scotland's greatest super fans called Moira Brown, and we're going to explore her journey all the way here to Larnaca to watch the game. And her journey started at Hampden with Alex Salmond.
Well, I'm here with Moira Brown at one of her favourite haunts. Moira, you should be welcoming me to Hampden Park since you've been here a lot more than I have.
A fair few times.
So what was your first ever game here in the home of Scottish football?
It was the Victory International after the Second World War.
So that was 1946. What do you remember about that game?
Of course I remember that we won, but I was disappointed it didn't go in an official record.
All right, because it was the Victory International, and there was I looked up the records in this, there was 140,000 people there.
I believe so. All I know that it was a tight crush in the terrace.
And when Jimmy Delaney, the Celtic forward, he scored the winning goal with just a couple of minutes left, was there a big sort of sway and crush in the crowd?
Yes, there was. There were still barriers, but my father protected me as a young 13-year-old, you know.
So your dad took you along to the game, and that gave you the taste for Scotland games, did it?
I kind of had it before, even when I was about 4 years of age, watching football on the park opposite the council house in Coatbridge.
But even though you're from Coatbridge, you became an Airdrie supporter.
Yes, I didn't like Albion Rovers ground at all, and even though it was just over the hill from the house, so since I was nearly in the cusp of Airdrie.
So you're a long-term season ticket holder at Broomfield, but then Scotland became your main love, and apart from I think a 10-year gap when you were doing something else, you've been to just about every game.
Just about. The only time I missed it was for a friendly abroad was for my daughter's 50th birthday, and I spent that in Berlin, so I got to Graz after to shed a few tears.
Now, you've you've been virtually everywhere with the team. You've been to South America, you've been to Uzbekistan, you've been to the 1974 World Cup in Germany, but you've had one or two mishaps. A friendly game in Sweden that put you in hospital.
Well, it was prior to the game, so I actually missed that game and was in tears. I fell and slipped at 2:30 in the morning on a ferry, and it ended up in the University Hospital in Gothenburg with a triple fracture on my right.
So let's get this right, Moira. You slipped before the game at 2:30 in the morning. What were you doing at 2:30 in the morning which caused the slip up?
Well, I was drinking, having a little libation, and then dancing with one of the younger Tartan army followers and slipped on the dance floor, if you could call it dancing.
So you've missed the game in Gothenburg, but you recovered in time, got a stick or two, and went to the '96 European finals in England.
Oh, of course, yes. And
Ali McCoy scored a decent goal, as I remember.
and I met up with my son, who was domiciled in Penzance, and thoroughly enjoyed it. And I was delighted that my nephew was among the policing, and he had reassured all his English compatriots he'll not have any trouble for the Scots.
Well, as I remember, in the Scotland-England game, or the England-Scotland game, a certain member of Parliament of my knowledge and my front base team had a slight brush with the constabulary at that time. But did you manage to get Mr. McCaskill out of the cells underneath Wembley?
No, I did not, but I've also had a good talk with him on the bridge at Prague once, and who made more sense between us, I wasn't quite sure.
Now, listen, you've been to so many games, you've followed Scotland everywhere, east, west, south, north, across the planet. What is it about the Scotland games and the Tartan Army that has held your affection so?
I think it's something that is hard to describe, but it's this innate feeling, particularly for those that travel everywhere, and I'm not the only one that's done it. I fully realise that, but there's something basic where there is this feeling that Scotland and the country is important to them. It's not just the football, and if ever anybody misbehaves, we self-police. I've witnessed that on many occasions, and we all help one another out. Again, something I would like to see widespread, and I think it's been there, but it hasn't been properly tapped and realised, and enough made of it, how we help one another in a community situation.
Off your trips, the 1974 World Cup in Germany must have been a bit of a highlight for you. Scotland unbeaten, but unjustly discontinued from the tour. Actually, the only unbeaten team in that entire tournament.
Entirely, and it was lovely again. My son was with my husband, who was at leave at the time, and again another shed a tear, but hey, we can take it, get on with it, keep going.
But despite our early departure, unjustly, from that tournament, you still managed to wangle a ticket to the final.
Well, Willie Ormond met up with us and told, I think there were about 23 of us stayed on. And
Willie Ormond being one of the famous five Hibernian, I have to say, and also a very good Scotland manager.
Exactly so. And it was a delight to watch the famous five, which I did. Once or twice saw them, because here we were in a higher league at that time. But he got us all tickets for games that we wanted, met up with us in the Olympic Stadium, bought us all a drink, chatted, and I've got fond memories of Willie Ormond as a sound person.
So he got you tickets to the final, and you watched Johan Cruyff and
Hans Beckenbauer.
Franz Beckenbauer, the Kaiser.
Yeah. his favourite saying was, "Hey, attack starts from defence," and he lived that on the football field.
Turning to the current Scottish side, who hopefully are going to take you back to Germany next year, but the current Scottish side, have you got a wee favourite among the players?
Yeah, got one or two, but one that inspires me because he inspires others on the park, with his fighting qualities is John McGinn.
John McGinn. I'm really glad you said that, Moira, for reasons that will become apparent. But looking back in this great catalogue of matches you've been to and places you've been, is there anything that absolutely stands out in that picture that you say, God, I'm really glad I was there?
Yeah, there was one occasion, there were quite a few occasions, was being in France and McFadden's kick out of the blue.
In Paris, wasn't it?
In Paris, yeah. And what a goal that was.
Because that was the championships, European championships, wasn't
it?
Yeah. Scotland were well up against it. They had Italy and France in their group. Only just failed to qualify at Hampden here against Italy, but they beat France here, and
Yes.
then they went to Paris.
Paris and beat them there.
I know. I put it. I just become First Minister, you know, and I put it all down to me because Liv Rose are winning the Junior Cup, and here Scotland beat France in Paris.
Well, I'll fight with you. I put it all down to me.
Now, while you're gallivanting over the world to Kazakhstan, to South America, to Germany, was there a bit? I mean, you were a nurse and a head teacher. Was there any kind of question marks about your attendance at school?
Oh no, never. I got to the World Cup in Germany, and then I wanted to go to Argentina, I think, but couldn't because of my work commitments. But come 82, I had asked for leave of absence, bearing in mind that in 13 years I had never been off sick. Even going to school on crutches with my left leg in plaster because I had fallen. Nothing to do with football and that injury. But they refused, and the headmaster had said, "Hey, it's okay, we've got a replacement." He was happy with the situation. When I phoned Air Sub-Region, they told me if I'd gone, there may not be a job waiting for me on my return. And I'll put this delicately, I told them where they could stick their job and came back. And after a few settling down a wee bit, I got a job in a remote island in the Orkneys.
So, as a result of you going to Spain to watch Willie Miller unfortunately collide with Alan Hansen against Russia, your punishment was you got banished to the Northern Islands.
Well, it turned out to be the best 10 years of my life as regard teacher satisfaction. I can honestly say my job was a pleasure and a privilege, because not only did I have the teaching, I was very much involved with the community.
And when you were teaching up north there, and you'd been to certainly more Scotland games than any other person in the islands had been to, even at that stage, Did the kids sort of say to you, Miss Brown, what was the Scotland games like? Did you enjoy yourself in Germany?
Well, in actual fact, when I was up there, I was starved of football. But it may come as no surprise to you that my summer project for the summer in environmental studies was Mexico in the World Cup. And what I got out of that, but more importantly, what the children got out of that in maths, measuring the length of football pitches, angles, etc., colours because I was dealing with 12 children from age 4 or 4.5, nearly 5, until they went to secondary school. So we had colours.
So you called that environmental studies?
Yes.
I wish I'd had more environmental studies when I was at school. Moira Brown, Scotland super fan. Thinking about all that time, that these many, since 1946 and the Victory International with Jimmy Delaney popping in the winner with 2 minutes to go, right through to this current highly successful Scotland side, looking like they're certainties now for getting to Germany. Is there a particular point, highlight with the Tartan Army that sticks in your mind?
Oh gosh, there's so many. But I'm going to quote a very recent one, Norway. And I was in Norway with a friend. I've got friends from all over, whether it's Rostock, part of the German Tartan Army, Didier who follows St. Etienne and goes to all the games that he can. Those people turn up here, they turn up abroad. I'm going to quote, because of the team just now and how I'm feeling, the game in Norway. And I've got a confession to make. I was so bowled over by their attitude and backing one another up on the field, even though tremendous pressure during the first half. And when Haaland scored his goal, the heads didn't go down. And I commented to my dear friend Ian, hey, their heads aren't going down. And then they're managing in, and we had a scrambly goal. And I was so wrapped up in that I actually missed seeing on the park. Was it Kenny McLean from Norwich?
It was indeed.
That scored that great goal. I got it again in the replay in the screens, but I was...
Well, if the first one was a scramble in defence, the second one was a classic goal.
It was a faddy type of goal.
And you were too busy celebrating?
I was too busy celebrating.
Goodness, Moira, your secret's safe with me. Now, I'm not going to hold you up any longer because you've got a busy day ahead of you. So Moira Brown, international Scotland fan extraordinary. I'll leave Moira to go and conduct her affairs for the day as we prepare for the confrontation in Cyprus.
So here I am at Leicester Hampden, and the excitement is mounting as Moira Brown is in for a very special surprise.
Hello.
I cannot believe they've left the label on for you. How are you?
Very well, very well.
Happy birthday.
Well, 90,
90.
into my 91st year.
Aye, but you don't let a day over 21.
You lie so beautifully. Keep on.
So you've been everywhere then? You were even in Kazakhstan?
The only place that I haven't been in the European thing is Azerbaijan.
Oh, so you hope we get Azerbaijan?
I'm hoping before I pop my clogs. It would be one on my wish list.
Oh, okay.
But hey, you guys keep going. It's an absolute pleasure to meet you. You're an inspiration. Keep on, it's a pleasure to meet you, and keep on inspiring the way you do.
Oh, thank you.
See that number, Moira?
90, yeah.
Yeah, you watched my spelling. I know you were a head teacher, so you watched my spelling. Legend. Right, I'm writing legend. And there, exclamation mark, and where am I signing? There, I'll sign in between here.
Yes, please.
There you go. So where's your favourite place that you've been following Scotland? There must be a favourite.
The country I like best as a country is Slovenia.
Oh, Slovenia, I like Slovenia.
Because it reminds me of Scotland. It reminds me of the South End. I travelled widely with my husband with the sea, so been to Japan, been to China, been to India, Pakistan. I've been in Israel with them, Haifa before, with the game there. And I had 10 years in the Orkneys on a remote island, and I did a bit, I'm a qualified nurse too.
Oh, okay.
So my RGN, and I filled in voluntary, but what would have got around the island, do you not dare phone up and get any chat? There's a football game on the telly. And one had, I said, only in an emergency. And once somebody phoned me and I said, is this an emergency? No.
Put it down. And Moira, have you got any tips for John and the boys? No?
And just keep doing what you're doing and backing up, because when we went to Norway and had a wee holiday with a Norwegian friend before he arrived, I was impressed and said to my sidekick, hey, although they're pressuring them, they're all backing one another up.
Aye.
In defence. And after Holland scored, I said, we're going to be all right, don't you worry, Ian.
Well, do you want me to let you know a secret, Moira, right? Do you know the reason? Do you know the reason why we scored the 2 goals? Because it was in the shade. It was roasting, remember? 2 goals we scored were in the shade, so that's why we scored.
Water around us, even, but I missed the good goal because I was so, a young guy in front of me kept hugging me, and then I got it on the screen and I missed the real good goal. Oh. But I saw it coming. There were things coming across a light wine play.
Now, as we know, Moira can talk for Scotland, but John has to go play for Scotland.
Right, so the 90th, are you coming back for your 91st birthday? You're right, you coming back? That's an invite.
I'll be there as long as there's breath in my body.
Oh, aye, too right, legend.
So, Moira, tell me a bit about your experience meeting John McGinn. What did you think of him?
What a cheerful, happy, relaxed body he is, and a gentle gentleman, but he seems to get fight that inspires them, where it comes from. But the feeling of Scotland, I've never seen him on the park that he wasn't willing to fight.
Well, we're going to let the boys get on with their training.
Right.
Join us after the break when we pick up Moira's latest campaign in Larnaca in Cyprus. Accompanying Moira to Larnaca was like a commander-in-chief on parade. She and Alex enjoyed a few convivial moments before the game, but were both on their best behaviour in the finest traditions of the Tartan army. As the most experienced fan present, Moira, and having already discussed tactics with John McGinn, took the time out to dispense some wisdom to a youngster on his very first expedition. And of course, it was young Noah who forecast the exact result.
Hello, Noah. It's great to meet you. I believe this is your first game watching Scotland away. I hope it's your first of many. Now, before I forget, I want your prediction for the game tonight. What do you think the score is going to be?
3-0 Scotland.
3-0. Good on you. I hope that comes to fruition. My first game was the Victory International 1946. Scotland won against England. It's not on the official records. Now, here's England for you. The feet of it. Okay, all the best. You're a fine young man, and I believe you got a connection with Darren Fletcher. I met him, he was a fine player, and I admired him. And I'm not telling lies. Okay, all the very best to you. Okay.
Right, I'm here outside the stadium in Larnaca with Moira Brown, super fan, super grand. Moira, this won't be your first rodeo in Cyprus, is it?
No, it's my third one, all for the football, and could I congratulate the Cypriots in developing part of their homeland.
Now, have you got a prediction for the game tonight, Moira?
No, I predict that our opponents will come out and have a good first half, but if they were as per the last two teams, they failed to score. And that's the trouble, I think, with Cyprus.
Now, as we've seen, you were meeting John McGinn last Tuesday. Did you give him any advice on how to handle the game?
Well, you can hardly teach your mother to suck eggs, but of course, me having a big mouth, I said, keep this fighting spirits going, play as a team, and never give up. That's the spirit.
And what the fans here want to know, did you get the impression for John that the team were up for the game?
Oh, very much so. And I've seen the development since Stevie Clark took over. And they like their manager, and their manager likes them. And he's happy to give those on song opportunities to play for Scotland.
Now, Moira, you've been watching Scotland since 1946.
Yeah.
So you've probably seen more games than all of us here put together.
Oh, well, I would hardly say that.
No.
I never counted. 46 was the victory match at Hampden, and of course we beat against England, and we beat them, but it didn't count for the records. There we are, done out as something again.
Now, of all the teams, all the Scotland teams you've seen over all of these years, is this one of the best?
I would say I have only seen another two that have been comparable.
Which ones were these?
Oh, Alec, I'm 91. I can't remember exactly. And although I got to lots and lots of games and World Cups, I had a 10-year famine of not watching football at all.
You were in the Orkney Islands.
I was sent by my family and applauded my way to go off and do my own thing.
So, Moira, you've been east, west, south, north with Scotland. Is Cyprus one of your favourite venues?
Not for a holiday, because I go to many other countries. I watch every single game, even the friendlies, and I'm now involved with watching the women's games. Life's getting shorter by the day for me, so make the most as long as you can do it with the help of others.
Now,
But I love to see the young ones that are involved now.
and your ambition, Moira, do you want to see Scotland lift a major trophy?
Oh, I would love to be standing with a cigarette in one hand, a pint in the other. And as my friends say, first two possible, the last one would be difficult. But nothing, if you keep going, do you not conquer in the end.
Now, if I said to you, Jim Baxter, John McGinn, which would you say was the better player? What would your verdict be? Remembering, of course, that John gave you a shirt last Tuesday.
Yes, and more importantly, I got it signed and I had a personal photograph. He looks good in it, by the way. What a handsome, big young man. Well, funnily enough, I would give John McGinn, because although he was very skillful, he was a bit of a showman.
Jim Baxter.
Yeah, which was good. You know, taking the urine out of England with his keepy uppies, that was magic to watch.
So you won't see John McGinn doing that against Cyprus?
No, and he'll be urging others. I think he's a very good team player. And although I admire Robertson and Tierney, great players, McGinn can egg them on, and he's got the fighting spirit right to the end.
And finally, Moira, if you were to say which quality above all do you look for in a Scotland side, what would it be?
Hard work and the ability never to give up. And do not think that others are always better than you. With hard work and effort, you can do it.
Moira Brown, super fan. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, Sally.
Soon the time for talking off the park was over, and the play of Steve Clark's side on the park took over.
Here we're now outside the stadium where Scotland have just won 3-0 and a very satisfied, happy Tartan army are celebrating the victory. We'll be asking Moira Brown what she thought of it. She's more used to 0-0 last minute wins for Scotland. How is she adjusting to a 3-0 comprehensive victory, putting Scotland well on the way to Germany? We'll find out in a minute or two. What did you think of the match?
Obviously over the moon.
You're used to biting your nails at 0-0 going into injury time. What's it like to be comfortably 3-0 ahead and strolling?
Well, I've got to say, I lose a bit. That sounds peculiar. I don't, but sometimes I think when they're taking it too easy, there's a bit of just playing about. I don't, they were comfortable. They knew they had everything under control. That's fine.
And finally, Moira, you started your Scotland journey at Hampden Park in 1946. You'll be on the way to Germany next year?
Well, if I don't plant my flags before I'll be there with everybody's help. That's so kind.
And so will I.
Good, Alec.
So we've followed the football journey and the life journey of the remarkable, indomitable Moira Brown. First game 1946, still going strong. 2023 in Cyprus with Scotland winning 3-0. I know Moira Brown thinks we're well on the way to Germany, and she also thinks this is the finest side, the finest Scotland side she's ever seen. And what kind of tips did she give John when he scored that most amazing goal? So it's Scotland 3, Cyprus 0, well on the way to Germany.
Having had the privilege of accompanying the extraordinary Moira Brown to Cyprus, I now understand a lot more about the Tartan Army and also about Scotland. These people typically have followed their team faithfully for years with little prospect of success and represented their country with no hint of anything other than positive international camaraderie. They are the best of our country, the backbone of the nation. Now they have a side worthy of their support, and one which will undoubtedly equip themselves well as they travel hopefully to Germany next year. Now there's a great deal more to Moira Brown than her status as an honorary Major General of the Tartan Army. She had a career in public service as a nurse and a head teacher. She is a grandmother and a great-grandmother, as well as an astute and determined political activist. However, it is in her 77-year love affair with the Scotland national side where she has truly blossomed. So here's to her, was like her, damn few and the raw deed. Now this was a very special edition of Scotland Speaks with Alex Salmond, dedicated to Moira Brown and of course Scotland's national team. Next week we return to normal. We will be back with some new hidden heroes, but remember the competition of last week where you've to choose your 3 from the 8 we've had so far.
Now Scotland has never been short of heroes. Women and men whose actions resound to this day through history. who fundamentally changed Scotland, sometimes changed the world. Mary Queen of Scots, Robert the Bruce, Mary Barber, Alexander Graham Bell, Alexander Fleming. We all know their names and what they did. But you know, I've always been fascinated by another category. I call them Scotland's hidden heroes. These are people who fundamentally changed things, often for the better, fundamentally changed civilization, the world. But nobody's ever heard of them. So we're going to pay tribute and homage to Scotland's hidden heroes. And the first of these is Bernard of Kilwinning. Bernard who? Bernard of Kilwinning. Who was he? Well, just listen to this. As long as 100 of us remain alive, never will we on any conditions be subjected to the lordship of the English. It is in truth not for glory, nor riches, nor honours we are fighting, but for freedom alone, which no honest man gives up, but with life itself. The words of the Declaration of Arbroath, resounding through history. Most school children in Scotland will have heard a snatch of these. In a properly ordered country, every school child would know them. They were written, probably, by Bernard of Kilwinning. It was Mary de Guise who first planted in the mind not an English monarchical takeover of Scotland, but a Scottish monarchical takeover of England. And of course it was her grandson, James VI, who became James I of England. So this extraordinary, courageous, wise lady with the heart of a lioness, who ruled over Scotland at a time of deep religious disturbance and trouble, who fended off invasions from England, who called on her French allies to try and assert not just Scottish independence, but also pursue doggedly the interests of the Stuart and the Guise line. Nobody's ever heard of her. They should have. She was one of the most extraordinary women in Scottish history. Because after Muir graduated in the late 1780s as an advocate and was enrolled into the Faculty of Advocates, he started to represent common people. He had a social conscience. He became a friend of the people, the reforming organisation who wanted to extend the franchise. And what happened to him then was that the power of the establishment started to bear down upon him. The person, Thomas Muir, who had become the most wanted man in the world, sought everywhere by the British forces, somehow contrived to get to revolutionary France, where he was greeted as a hero of the revolution. He had the equivalent of a ticker tape parade through the streets of Paris as they celebrated this radical Scotsman. Muir, by this time, and given his experiences hardly surprisingly, a thoroughgoing, full-scale revolutionary, spent his last days in France in Chantilly plotting the overthrow of the British government and the establishment of a Scottish Republic, because by then, due to repression and the fear, of course, of the Napoleonic Wars, then the Friends of the People had turned into the United Scotsmen. Carolina wrote anonymously, one of the most prolific songwriters of the late 18th century, either anonymously or sometimes under the initials of BB or SM. Gender neutral, she would have been very much in vogue these days. But she wrote anonymously because it was thought that women in the 18th century surely couldn't be serious composers or serious writers, but Carolina Oliphant, better known as Lady Nairn, was certainly that. But Carolina was a staunch Jacobite right through her long life and right through all of her substantial body of work. So what kind of songs did she write? Well, you'll know them. Bonnie Charlie's New Away, 100 Pipers in Awe, Charlie is my darling, and my all-time favourite, The Rowan Tree. 100 beautiful songs. She wrote them all, obviously, and some of them she composed the music as well. What was Maclean's significance? Very substantial. In fact, Hugh MacDiarmid, the greatest Scottish poet of the 20th century, actually said that Maclean, in his estimation, ranks second only to Robert Burns in terms of the impact he'd made in spreading a message of socialism and hope to the people. His legacy was awkward. Awkward for the Labour Party because he'd been a revolutionary. Awkward for the Scottish National Party because he'd never been a Scottish nationalist as such. I mean, he died 10 years before the Scottish National Party was formed. But his legacy was embraced and an inspiration to many in the wider national movement. And his position was held high and recorded by songsters such as Hamish Henderson and Matt McGinn. Mary Barbara was the peace activist, the women's activist who in the early days of the First World War organised the rent strikes, first in Govan and then across Glasgow, because what was happening was that landlords were taking advantage of the pressure on housing and the fact that men were away fighting in the trenches to vastly increase the rents on their families. Mary Barbara and her Confederates were having none of it. They organised a rent strike, and at one point up to 20,000 people joined in. Now, the authorities were panicked. The landlords were very upset indeed, and on November the 17th they struck and brought 18 tenants to the Sheriff Court in Glasgow, to the small claims court, to have them thoroughly dealt with. Mary Barbara organised Mary Barbara's Army, linked up with engineering workers, with the shipyard workers, had a tremendous, peaceful but agitated demonstration. The authorities panicked. They phoned up Lloyd George. Lloyd George says, release the tenants immediately, I'll sort it out. And within 1 month, a Rent Act, a Rent Control Act, went through its legislative stages in Parliament and the issue was solved. Total victory for the protesters. Johnson was the solution to Churchill's Scottish problem. He knew that Johnson, as one of the most left-wing Labour MPs in the Commons, carried great clout with the unions, and he knew that Johnson was enough of a Scottish nationalist to fend off nationalist sentiment as well. And Johnson used this to great effect. He used to boast that his resignation was in his top drawer in his office in St Andrew's House. And if Winston Churchill ever went back on the agreement that he ran Scotland while Churchill ran the war, then that resignation would be put into full use. This stood Johnson in great stead. He was able to put into practice one of the greatest things in Scottish history. That's the formation of the Scottish Hydroelectric Board. And in 1943, he powered legislation through the House of Commons with emergency powers of compulsory purchase, so that the great ambition for hydroelectricity was able to be started, which came into full flourish after the war, when Johnson, of course, appointed himself as the second chairman of the North of Scotland Hydroelectric Board. Mary Mitchell Slessor. Her family was from Aberdeenshire, but Mary was brought up in the slums of Dundee, and by the time in the 1870s she was inspired to become a missionary. Her Presbyterian faith drove her to Africa. She was in her late 20s and a skilled jute worker. But Mary had a further mission in mind. Mary carried her mission to the Cross River State area of Nigeria. That's in the southeast of the country, jutting out into the Atlantic. It was a place in the 1870s where male missionaries feared to tread. Many of them had met their fate and their end in that area, but that was of no deterrent whatsoever to Mary Slessor. And for 40 years she carried out her mission there, becoming known as the White Queen of the Okiong people. She saved literally thousands of youngsters from infanticide, which was one of the common practices of the tribes at the time, particularly when twins were born. And she brought the message of hope and religion and faith to these people and devoted 4 decades of her life until her death in 1915.
Now, I promised to give you a big clue, which I did last week, and I'm going to give you an even bigger one this week. Remember, when you're choosing your 3 out of the 8 adult human females, doesn't that narrow it down a bit? But for now, from me and all of the team, we hope to see you again next week, while I'll be reading out your texts, tweets, messages and emails in response to our last 2 shows on Scotland's economy and, of course, the wonderful Moira Brown. Until then, stay safe, take care, and we'll see you next week.
This is an exciting time in Scotland's story, and understanding our past will help us determine our future. And when Scotland's voice is heard, It charts the way forward. This is Scotland Speaks with Alex Salmond.